after I retired, one of the first home renovation projects Amy and I did was to redo our dining room. We wanted to put some panel molding below our chair rail. Never did anything like that quite before. Was a little intimidated about how big to make it, how to measure it, how to do it. But it really turned out to be pretty simple. It was just a weekend project. So we want to show you how we did that. We went from this to this. And here's how we did it. Let's jump right in. Now, one of the scarier parts to this project for me was, how do I do all the calculations to figure out how to make all the spacing look correct and make my trim pieces fit to where it doesn't look cattywampus? How do I know how long to cut each of these pieces? Well, it's really pretty simple to calculate. Here's how I do it. So for these vertical pieces, what I did was I just measured. I wanted a gap here and a gap here to look the same. So I measured from here to here, and I found it was 33 inches. And then I realized that this part does not have any trim, and this part does not have any trim. And for me, those were going to be 4.5 inches each. That's what I wanted my spacing to be. So I took this total distance, 33 inches, minus 4.5 inches for this and 4.5 inches for that, 9 inches total. And that's the total length of this piece from this corner to this corner. So 33 minus 9, 24 inches is how long this piece would be. So I set that up on my saw with a template, and all of these vertical pieces, I just cut one after the other to make them all the same length. For the width, what I did was, I realized that from here to here, I would measure that total distance. And in this case, I had 69.5 inches. So I measured that total distance. Now for this one, since I knew I wanted two squares in here, two rectangles, I knew that was 4.5 inches. This is 4.5 inches. And this is 4.5 inches. I had 3 places where there would not be trim. So I took that total distance, 69.5 inches, minus 4.5, minus 4.5, minus 4.5. That's the total length or total width of trim I would need. So 69.5 minus 4.5, 4.5, and 4.5. And then I had 2 of these horizontal pieces I needed to cut. So that total width that I had left over, I just divide by 2. And that's the width of these 2 pieces from corner to corner. I set that up on my saw, and I cut 4 of those, and I had my horizontal pieces. So then I could just put them all together. For this wall, I had the same 24-inch vertical pieces. So I could cut all of those. And notice on this wall, I had 3 squares. This one's hidden a little bit by the cabinet. So I cut all those vertical ones, the same 24 inches. Is 33 inches from here to here, minus the 4.5 and 4.5 inches from my space. Now for the horizontal, I measured the entire width of this wall, the length of this wall. And I had to realize how many gaps will I have, how many 4.5 inch gaps. In this case, I have 1 here, 2, 3, and number 4 is on the end. So I took this total length minus 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, a total of 18 inches. And that's the total amount of trim, horizontal trim I would have on this wall. And I'm going to have 3 of these rectangles. So I just divided that total length by 3. And that's how long I'm going to make each of these horizontal pieces. I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. I set that up on my saw and cut all 6 of those. I cut a couple of spacers that were 4.5 inches wide. I'll use these later whenever I put the panels actually on the wall. Before cutting the trim, I would first always cut a piece of scrap wood to the right length. I put that template right up against my saw blade at 90 degrees. And on the other end of the template, I would clamp a board just so I'd have a stop whenever I was going to cut my pieces to length. This is the type of trim that I used. I cut one end of the trim off at 45 degrees, and I cut it so that the longest piece of the trim would go up against my backstop. Once I slid it to the backstop, I switch over to the other direction for 45 degrees, and I cut the length. Using the 4.5-inch spacers, I would brad nail each of these trim pieces to the wall. Each panel would take 2 or 3 minutes, but let me speed it up so you can see me do several panels here. Once the panels were up, it's time to clean it up. So we use caulk around the edges of it. We tend to put quite a bit of caulk on and just use our fingers to work it in and smooth it out. Then we run over it with a wet rag to make sure it's all cleaned up. We also filled in the nail holes with a little bit of wood putty, sanded those off, and that's how we cleaned it up. From the chair rail on down, we painted everything white, including the baseboards, the panels we just put on, the wall, and even the cabinet. Overall, we're very happy with how this turned out. It ended up being a much easier project to do than we first anticipated. To be honest, I was a little intimidated on how I would do the measurements. Would I be able to make them look clean and nice? Would you be able to tell that an amateur like I did it? But it ended up, it's not too hard to do. And I think it's a great weekend project. I hope that was useful for you. Please subscribe to the channel so you can follow us on our other adventures and our other projects.